Welcome to my series about remarkable women in the United States so that you can learn more English like vocabulary and phrases. Today, I'm going to be talking about Susan B. Anthony. Is this a woman that you have heard about before? Do you know anything about Susan B. Anthony? My name is Tanya, and if we haven't met before, welcome. I live here in Southern California, and this is one of this is the third in my series about remarkable American women. Is remarkable a word that you have heard before? Let me know in the comments where you're from and are you living there now? So, for example, I'm from the Midwestern part of the United States. I was born in Colorado and I currently live in Southern California. So, let's get to know Susan B. Anthony. I have some notes here so that I can be sure to give you accurate or correct information. She was born on February 15th in 1820 in the state of Massachusetts. So let me get my handy dandy map here and help you to get an idea of where Massachusetts is. Up here in the northeastern part of the United States, this little purple state is Massachusetts. And this is where Susan B. Anthony was born into a Quaker family. If you haven't heard of the Quakers, this is a religious group in the United States. In fact, they came to the United States from England to have religious freedom. And this particular group is very, well, I shouldn't say very focused. I should say that they have a strong belief in social equality. And so she was taught the importance of justice and human rights from a very early age. So here is a great phrasal verb. The phrasal verb I want to share with you is to stand for, which can mean, for example, to stand for human rights, to stand for justice. But it has another very common meaning. What does the letter B stand for in Susan B. Anthony's name? See if you have a guess. What does the letter B stand for? I'm going to write this in the comments. What does the letter B stand for in Susan B. Anthony's name? Can you guess what the letter B stands for? I'm going to tell you here in just a minute, but I will give you a hint. This was, and maybe still is, a common way that parents give their children a middle name. Are middle names common in your country? Very common in the United States, in other English speaking countries, to have a middle name. So let's practice, because one of the best ways to learn vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms is to use these different things in your daily life. Today, we'll practice, for example, my first initial is the first letter of your name, your middle name or your last name, any of your names. My first initial is T, and it stands for, T stands for Tanya in my name. What is your first initial and what does it stand for? Write it in the comments. My first initial is, and it stands for, fill in the blank. Write that in the comments below. And welcome Olga from Moscow, Rafael from Poland. We have folks from Russia and Turkey and Italy and Vietnam. We have people from all over the world. Welcome, welcome. What is your first initial and what does it stand for? And do you have a guess what the middle initial of Susan B. Anthony could be? Okay, so that was my first point. She was born in the early 1800s in Massachusetts, and she was a Quaker. Number two, she had a very good education, which was very uncommon for women and girls in that time period, which for me gives me hope because over time this became more common and it continues to be more and more common for women and girls to have a good education. So I have hope for other countries where this is not the reality, that this can happen and that women can have this right to a good education. And it made a difference for her because she became a teacher and an advocate for equal pay for women who were teachers. So, an advocate is someone who stands for a cause. So, this is a different way to use that phrasal verb, stands for. She stands for equal pay. So while I'm thinking about that, what do you think her middle name is, what the B stands for? And I'm just going to tell you, I did not know what the B in Susan B. Anthony's name stood for until I researched it for this live video. And it stands for Brownell. I'm gonna write that here. It stands for Brownell. This is interesting to me because right away I know that this is not a common first name and it may be used as a first name now because this is something that happens in our culture is a last name may become a first name if it is used or sometimes when it is used as a middle name or a first name. So she was named after her maternal grandmother. Maternal means the mother, her mother's mother. If it was her father's mother, it would be her paternal grandmother. Don't worry about remembering all of this vocabulary. I am going to give you tips and tricks on how you can use this video to remember more vocabulary and become more fluent as we get to the end of the video today. For now, enjoy listening. And if you want to or enjoy taking notes, this is a great thing to do. Or write things in the chat because this helps you to use your motion of your hands along with your visual and your hearing. Okay, number three, she was involved in the temperance movement. Another thing I didn't know or I did not remember from learning about her in school, she is something we all learn about. She is well known and recognized still today in the United States, but I had not heard of or remembered this particular movement, the temperance movement. So I looked to see if it was related to prohibition because temperance was looking for, let me see what I wrote the words here, to reduce the consumption of alcohol. In other words, to reduce drinking alcohol, to reduce the consumption of alcohol. And prohibition came later, but it was when we made drinking and selling alcohol completely illegal. That could be a whole nother video, but it ended up being a very bad thing, a disaster, and we don't have that now because a lot of people lost their lives in that particular movement. But I looked it up, and yes, in fact, the temperance movement that Susan B. Anthony was involved with did lead to, or was related to, I should say, the prohibition. I shouldn't say I would say was related to prohibition. So have you heard of Susan B. Anthony before? Let me know in the comments. I see Lindsay says hello from Holland. And do you give private classes? I do, Lindsay, but currently my schedule is full. Tiana is a teacher here in my school, and her lessons are very similar to mine. She gives private lessons, and you can find out more about that by sending me, or pardon me, putting a comment on this video after I post it. I look at the comments for at least 24 hours and answer all those comments. Or you can send me an email. And I need to put, I think her link is on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, be sure to go over there. That reminds me to say, Lindsay, thank you for your question, that I do have a fluency program for women called She Speaks. It is our 2-month long fluency program. It is an excellent way to become more confident in your speaking and become more fluent without studying, without using workbooks, without wasting time. And if you want more information about our She Speaks fluency program for women, I will put a link below this video when I post it. All right. Number 4, Susan B. Anthony formed a partnership with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And the reason this is important is that later she becomes an important part of some of the things that Susan B. Anthony was known for. And I have an interesting point to share with you about that here in a minute as well. Number 5, she dedicated much of her life to the women's suffrage movement, which is the movement to give women the right to vote. She traveled extensively. I'll write this word here, extensively. This is a great word if you want to say she traveled a lot. She traveled extensively. And she gave speeches. She rallied for support with women holding signs for the right for women to vote. Number 6 is that she was arrested. This blows my mind. She was arrested for voting illegally in a presidential election. I'm speechless. That is wrong. That is wrong. But her trial did bring attention to the women's suffrage movement, noting that women needed to have the right to vote. She was given a fine, which means they told her that she had to pay money for doing this illegal thing. She refused to pay the fine and worked harder to get the women's right to vote. Number 7, she co-founded the National Women Suffrage Association, the NWSA. So here's our phrasal verb again. If you're just now joining me, you might want to watch the beginning of this video when I post it as a recording. NWSA stands for, there's our phrasal verb, stands for National Women Suffrage Association. And she founded this with her partner Stanton that I mentioned in 1869 is when they founded it. It was for women's suffrage and other rights. And when I learned of this in my research, I was like, okay, so why is Susan B. Anthony so famous? I would say most people, especially anyone who's ever been to the public school system in the United States for high school, middle school, actually pretty much any grade, is going to know about Susan B. Anthony. And there's another reason I'm going to tell you in a minute. Why do you think that Susan B. Anthony was famous and Stanton is a name I never heard of, her partner? I'm going to see if there are any questions here. Hello, Switzerland and Algeria. Welcome, Haj Haj Diaf. I always wish I could spell your name or say your name correctly. Welcome to our live today. If you're just now joining me, go back in the chat here where I wrote the sentence for you to fill in. My first initial is, and it stands for, so for example, my first initial is T, T, and it stands for Tanya. There's two vocabulary words here, initial and the phrasal verb stands for. Okay, number 8. She did not live to see the 19th Amendment passed. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States is what gives women the right to vote. She didn't live to see that, which is very sad to me, but the amendment is often referred to as the Susan B. Anthony movement. Number 9 is her legacy, what we will remember her for, all these things, and how we honor her. And this is one of the reasons she is well known still today, is because her picture is depicted on a $1 coin. So a $1, it's money. It's a little bigger. It's, I believe, one of the biggest coins we have. They aren't really common, but when you do get a Susan B. Anthony silver dollar, is what we call it. People will even just call them a Susan B. Anthony. Do you have a Susan B. Anthony? It means, do you have one of these coins that is worth $1? So depicted on means that her picture is on the coin. And if I'm correct, she was the first, yes, first woman to be depicted on US currency or money. In 1979 is when this happened. This is 200 years after we became a country and got our freedom in 1776, which we will be celebrating on Thursday, which is the 4th of July, our Independence Day. And I'm going to talk more about that on my live on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Los Angeles, California time. If you can join me live, if not, you can see the recording after I post it. Does anyone have a question? Tell me where you are living, where you are from, what language do you speak, and what is your first initial? What does it stand for? Welcome, Sweden, Lima, Peru, Serbia. This is wonderful to have everyone here. My last point for you today, before I give you some tips and tricks for using this video to learn more English and become more fluent, is a quote from Susan B. Anthony. Men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less. This is something she said that she's well known for. So, men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less. Pointing out the importance of equal rights doesn't mean that men and women are exactly the same. This is a huge misunderstanding in equal rights. It means they should have the same rights. And it's pointing out that men have more rights and women have less rights. It's pointing out the inequality. This is an interesting quote that I think I will think about some more, the way she said it. And I wanted to give you a couple of things that you can do to use this video and other videos I have to increase your fluency. So hopefully you've been listening and enjoying the information. And just by listening, you are becoming more fluent. That's all you have to do. But if you want to do more, if you have time to do more, my suggestion to you is to Listen to this video again and write down any new words. Pause the video, write down any new words. You can use the captions or the subtitles that come automatically on the video. Write down the words and then put that aside. In other words, put it somewhere on your desk, wherever. Do your life like normal. And in 2 to 3 days, listen to the video again and see if you understand more or if it is simply just easier for you to listen and understand. This is a great way to increase your fluency. Another thing you can do is the tip that I already gave you, which was to use the fill in the blank that I put earlier on the video. I will post it again here, and you can do that now. Fill this out, write this in the chat or the comments. My first initial is T, and it stands for Tanya. But put your first initial and what it stands for. This is going to help you to remember this phrasal verb stands for and the word initial, which is the first letter of your name. Okay, if you have a last question, put it in the comment. Be sure to go over and put a comment on this video when I post it as a recording. And in the meantime, I'm going to give you something you can do in the meantime, which means while you wait. Zara, I hope Zara Fatma, my first initial is Z and it stands for Zara. I hope I said your name correctly because, well, not because, and let me tell you, you gave me your first, second, and third initials. So you could say my initials are ZFU and they stand for Zara Fatma Usal. I bet I didn't say that correctly. I really tried. Maria, hello. She says, hello. I am from Crimea. I got a series of books, English in Use. These are great workbooks if you want to use a workbook. My recommendation is that you spend more time listening to English. This is a more natural way to learn, and you will be more likely to remember. But if you love using workbooks, I know one of my daughters loves workbooks, then this is a great series of workbooks. Let me see if there are any other questions here. Vitter, hello from Sao Paulo. I've been studying English about 1 year and I'm always watching your videos when I can. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for everything you wrote in the comments. This is very helpful for me. And if you are ready to learn even more English and increase your fluency, I recommend that you watch the video I will put here as soon as YouTube lets me do that. Thank you again. I hope to see you live soon, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.